and welcome to this week's episode of Chatting with the Lightkeeper. I'm Edward, otherwise known as the Lightkeeper, and I guess it was last week, maybe the week before. I'm losing track of time as early summer is kind of flying by, and during the little daily DSs that either I write or that I record, it all depends on, the social media that you are picking them up on. I write a little blog blurb, a short little essay, if you will. And over on Instagram, I challenge myself to condense that short little essay into 90 seconds or less, which for somebody like me who, once they get talking, tends to get distracted, see a shiny thing, condensing something down to just 90 seconds can be a challenge. And it's a challenge I enjoy, so that's the big reason why I do those little 90-second or less videos on Instagram. But I did one on something that was termed Nameology, just looking at the names people come up with for their users or for themselves when they use lifestyle sites or are using social media to interact with others in the greater community. And I think it's important that we do engage as a community and come together as a community, because one of the very first struggles that most everyone goes through when they discover or start exploring kink is they kind of feel alone. So finding that community and making connections is really important for everyone. But the names, the usernames that we as a community, we use, the individuals we all use, it just seems to me that we, as a community, there are exceptions to this rule, but we can be kind of generic and kind of doing the same, rather than letting our individual uniqueness shine. And so that little 90-second ditty and the short essay got me thinking more and more about our usernames and how we create them and what they actually stand for. And those types of things I couldn't condense down to just 90 seconds. So I thought it would be a wonderful thing to talk about on the podcast here. So let's start by kind of talking about why it's important to have a unique to you username as we explore the kink community. And I can understand if you are new, it can probably be almost intimidating to think of a username, or what do I want to be known as in the greater kink community? I mean, do you pick something that's kink related? I mean, for a guy that's new and thinking maybe perhaps they're dominant, do I go with like Sir Spanks a lot? I mean, I like spanking. Do I go with that? Or if I'm a submissive, do I choose something, I'm curious about bondage. Do I choose something like rope related? It has to be very, very intimidating to come up with a name, and I think some of that leads to some of the genericness that is there, and there's nothing wrong with that. So let's start with why a unique username is important. First, it will, in a way, just by a name, kind of tell other people what you are seeking and looking for. Maybe it's education. Maybe it's to grow. Maybe you're looking for a partner. It also helps us, establish an identity or kind of build upon your reputation. If perhaps you do something crazy like I do and have a podcast and blog and post about it, having a username that's somewhat unique, I hope to think that mine is a little unique, stands out and helps establish that identity so that when people see it, they know who's behind it. Another thing that is very important in the community, especially if you are new and unsure and just trying to get your feet, is our usernames give us privacy and anonymity online. It doesn't necessarily link back to who we really are. So if we are worried about being discovered for our interest, our usernames kind of provide an extra layer of protection in that. And Usernames, most importantly, are everyone's first impression. Everything online pretty much is driven by that username. Yes, we may, for example, send a message or create a video, do something like that, but it all comes back to that name that pops up with either that message or that video or that meme, whatever it is, or the comment, and that username is your first impression that other people will often have of you. So it's very, very important to have a username that makes a good first impression. So let's kind of start when we talk more about usernames with some things to look for to avoid when choosing your unique to you username. First of all, since our username is one of the ways that we protect our privacy and our anonymity online, make sure that you are, unless you really want to be out there, that you're not using your real name. Perhaps you use a pen name if you actually want to go with a name. If you're Joe Blow, maybe you go with Joe Smith if you want to be close and be known as Joe. But try to avoid putting your birth date. A lot of times you'll see people who have a username with numbers after their name. Try to make sure that those numbers don't equate to your birth date or, heaven forbid, a social security or a government ID number. No, 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 no. Please don't do that. And I say that because there are people who have and are doing that. So please don't do that. Remember, our usernames are designed to give us some anonymity and offer us the level of privacy that we choose by what we reveal. And when we do choose to reveal something, if we choose to reveal something, we need to be very careful about it. So make sure that you do kind of have some barriers there that separate your username from your real identity. Another thing that our usernames do is they give us kind of authenticity in the online world. A unique username or a username that reflects something about a person conveys an authenticity, that there's a real person behind it. It's just not some Twitter bot that has just created this name and is trying to do whatever it is that bots seem to do, other than tag along, follow along, and send us garbage in our inboxes. So it gives that authenticity that there is a real person behind it. Now, we talked a little bit about keeping yourself safe by hiding behind the anonymity. There we go, of our usernames and how it helps keep us private, or what we choose to keep private. So once again, don't use your real name. Don't use, even if you live in a big city, maybe, Chicagoland Daddy Dom might not be the best choice to go with. And certainly, you don't try to do things that connect your vanilla occupation to it. Don't go with Chicagoland Coder or something like that. Keep you want to keep it pertinent perhaps to you, things that you enjoy, things that you like to reflect you, but you don't want to get too overly done there. Another thing that some people don't do, and they really should, is when it comes to creating a username, you're logging in, creating a new profile at a site, whether it's social media or a dedicated lifestyle site like a FetLife, and that would be, use a separate email. Don't use the email that that your friends send you an email, or heaven forbid, don't use your corporate or work address, your email address. Go head over to Gmail or wherever it is you do your emailing, and create a special email address that's going to be your email address for the specific kink community, whether it's social media kink or a dedicated site. Use a different email address. Don't use your daily emailer. Also, when it comes to passwords, be unique, make them strong. remember, shady people occasionally do hang out in the kink community. And so make sure that your passwords are strong. And if you are using it at, accessing a site, especially social media where there's two-factor authorization, make sure you enable it and use it. It really will help keep your content and your identity safer. And of course, always be careful with what you share about yourself to others. Our biggest hurdle to keeping our identity safe is our own selves. We get talking with somebody and, oh, I live here, I do this for a living, and pretty soon it doesn't take too much work for someone who's nefarious, or even not nefarious, just, perhaps a well-meaning fan of your blog, if you blog, to figure out where you are, and surprise, they're saying hi to you in a very inopportune time. So just always be careful with what you share about yourself, and with any lifestyle site or social media you're going to use for kink things. Well, it's not exciting reading. Take a few minutes and go through their privacy settings, find out how to, keep your personal data personal and not have it shared with everybody out there. And also remember that when you do create an identity, especially on a lifestyle site, if you're going to do things like post pictures or personal information, it could, fall into somebody's, and what is it? Anything that you put on the internet never really gets deleted. So just remember that smile picture of you smiling that you're sharing on a lifestyle site or a lifestyle social media site, or social media you're going to use for lifestyle things, and your smiling picture, that's going to be there and associated even if you did hit the delete button. So just kind of keep those things in mind as you are going through the process of signing up and creating that username for either the Kinktastic website or the social media that you are going to use to access lifestyle content. When it comes to picking a username that'll kind of stand out from the crowd or perhaps be a little different, once again, make sure we're using that separate email, and we're being conscious about your privacy and anonymity with what you're thinking for a username. But also, a username can be used to, here in the kink community, it could be used to imply to others the role that you have in the lifestyle, maybe dominant, submissive, a switch, or interest you might have. Perhaps it's rope bondage, or perhaps you are somebody who enjoys spanking, or you have a certain desire, or you're just exploring. All of this can be expressed in just a username. So consider what you are seeking when you create that username. And the other thing you can do, if you are so inclined, if you are looking for something specific, you are on a quest to learn more about a specific kink, you can be that specific in your username. However, the drawback of being very specific with something like that is if you like that username and you are now researching something unrelated to your special kink, which is expressed in your username, it may cause other people online to not take you seriously since you are out of that specific realm, if you were. And also, of course, never forget that your username will be, once again, that first impression that always, whether it's in person or online, can never be redone. So another thing with usernames is try to make them easy to remember and recognize. The easier it is to remember is if you say something meaningful or impactful to someone, and they may want to create open a conversation or dialogue with you. Having a easy to remember username makes it easier for them to look you up and get in touch with you rather than trying to scroll back through to find that content that sort of grabbed their attention, that caused them to think of you. So being able to have a unique and easy to remember username will make it easier for you to foster and grow connections within the community. And when it comes to having unique usernames, make sure that you think of little things like if you are going to have an I and an L, for example, make sure they're clearly defined as an I and an L. Sometimes it's hard to tell, geez, is that an uppercase I or is that a lowercase L in their username? Especially since sometimes with a username that we may like, we may have to kind of get a little fancy with how we spell it to make it fit. For example, I know on FetLife I have to use an underscore with the Lightkeeper because there is somebody who already has the Lightkeeper in use, so I have to stick an underscore in there so that I can be the Lightkeeper but not be the other Lightkeeper, if that makes sense. So just be mindful of the spelling so it's easy to recognize and somebody isn't sitting there going, is that an I or an L? Is it an I or an L? And why does this keep getting kicked back? I'm trying to, or they send it to the wrong person because somebody has the version with the I and you're the version with the L. So just be mindful of that. Another thing that really surprised me as I kind of dug into names when it comes to the wonderful world of kink is there's a lot of, there is a top 10 of names or parts of usernames that are kind of surprising. Not necessarily fully surprising, but kind of surprising. That are not as unique as we might think they are. Some of them will surprise you as we kind of go through this list. Other ones probably you're like not going to be surprised. So we'll start and do this David Letterman style. We'll start with number 10 and work our way all the way up to number 1. Or is it down to number 1? Up or down? I guess it would be down since we're starting at 10 going to 1. Going from big to small. So we'll work our way down to number 1. The first commonly bit that is found in a username, and it's not necessarily found in its entirety, but references to 50 Shades. And when I say references to things like 50 Shades of Spanking or 50 Shades of Red or 50 Shades of Dominance. Those types of, not actually 50 Shades of Gray, perhaps, but you're somehow bending 50 and shades into a username. So people who do that, they're kind of number 10 on the list of common kinky usernames. Number 9 are the folks that incorporate bondage somehow into their username. Whether it's Sir Tie You Up or switch to tie or switch to bind. All sorts of some sort of bondage reference comes in at number 9. And there's nothing wrong if you are expressing a particular kink or fetish that you're into. That is great, and you can, use a term like a bondage-related term and still be unique. Just because a lot of people do that doesn't necessarily mean you're uncreative because you are expressing that. You're not. It's all in how everything else falls within it. Number 8 is not a surprise, I'm sure, to anybody, but spank. The amount of Sir Spanks-a-lot or Sir Spanking or Sir seems to be mostly a Sir type thing where Sir gets linked with spanking. But spank is very, very popular, coming in at number 8. Number 7 are the M&Ms of the lifestyle. That is the master and mistresses of the lifestyle. This one I need to just put my own 2 cents in. Can't help it. When I see master and mistress, I was taught the lifestyle in an old school manner. So some of that old school ways comes through, and this is one of those places where it does. Master is still something that in the lifestyle, or mistress will use either of the M words. Those are something that you have kind of 2 ways as an individual to earn them. First, you have an amazing partner or partners, and they refer to you by that title. They call you master or mistress. And it's in your partnership, and how it works in your partnership, that's fantastic. So rock on with either the M or either M&M if that's how your relationship rolls. Awesome. The other way would be if you are involved in a kink community and the community says that you are a master. For example, perhaps you teach a class on suspension, rope suspension, every Tuesday night, and the community recognizes that you are masterful with the work that you do with that, and they bestow upon you the title of master or mistress because of this. That's fabulous. The other place where you do see it and it's not bestowed or not in a relationship, especially online, master or mistress, more so mistress, but sometimes master, can signify pay-to-play arrangements where somebody is a professional, meaning you are paying for their time or their expertise. And in that case, you will see a lot of people that use that title. So when you do see it online, it can mean that it is a pay-to-play, especially with mistress. For some reason, professional dominatrix seem to migrate to being called mistress. So that is something that when you see it online, no. And the other place you see it online is oftentimes with the folks who are newer, who are the instant experts. They discovered, the lifestyle 3 days ago in a Reddit post, and since then they've researched a whole total of 4 hours online, looking at more porn than actual educational material, and they are now a master or mistress because they've missed the educational side of it, and they are looking to show their mastery because they know it all. And you see it a lot. So master and mistress is something that can be and is a red flag. So just be careful of those who incorporate either of the M&Ms into their username. At number 6, we have the sub or submissive. Not a big surprise there. A lot of people are on the submissive side of the slash, and in their username they want to reflect that. So you're going to see that often. Coming in at number 5, kind of appropriate because Father's Day was just recently passed. So you have a lot of daddies, all sorts of different daddies. So you see daddy quite often linked with hopefully a unique identifier rather than just daddy 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully something that it tells more about them than their big daddy, because it just seems like big daddy and numbers is very popular too. So if you're going to be a daddy, be creative with what you link with your daddy. Number 4 was something that did surprise me because you don't see it as often. Leather is old school, but leather is still something that comes in number 4 on the big board of people using with their username. So leather is still a lot hipper than it seems. Coming in at number 3 is something that in a way is related to the lifestyle, but you probably didn't think of it here. That would be the word naughty. Maybe it's spelled, if they're into bondage, maybe it's KNOTTY, naughty, or naughty with a W, or, there's all sorts of different spellings of naughty. But number 3 is naughty. Number 2 is either BDSM or DS by itself. So you have a lot of people that incorporate those little acronyms into their username. And the number 1 title, this one goes out mostly to dominant men who seem to do it. These men all seem to run in one giant pack, and that's wolves or wolf. The wolf is now the number 1 identifier in the land of kingdom, or part of number 1 as far as use in a username, which is surprising but not surprising if you look at really social media or even dedicated lifestyle sites. There's the last, Plains Wolf Daddy and all these wolves with numbers, and I've always wondered this. So if you're out there and hey, being a wolf is your jam, and you run in your pack, if I drop my pants and moon you, are you gonna howl? I've always just wondered that. But anyways, that wolf being a wolf or wolf related is the number one thing with used in a username. Now, these little identifiers, or even the number one being a wolf, doesn't necessarily mean you have a bad username. You can still be creative. You can still be unique. You can still make a great impression, and show your affinity to run in a pack, or to your affinity for being a submissive, or that you're into spanking, or that you are a daddy. All of these things can be incorporated into a unique username. Just these are the top 10 for people that are out there with kink. So how do you take and make a username more creative or more memorable or unique? Now, in the lifestyle, yes, you can talk about lifestyle terms, but a lot of people do that. So consider expressing who you are as a person rather than what your kinks are or what your lifestyle role is. Consider, expressing or bringing together even your lifestyle interests with your regular, good old-fashioned hobbies and interests, or what makes you unique. Maybe you are submissive and really into photography, so maybe you can somehow mesh, like Shutterbug with submissive or something like that. Just something that shows your uniqueness, or a hobby and an interest, mesh that with the lifestyle. Another one that I've always enjoyed, I'm not funny, but I can be punny. So play with words, use alliteration, think of some clever combinations of words to put together, make yourself stand out that way. Here's another great idea. Let's say you do want to go with the wolf theme, and you still want to stand out. Well, maybe you're of Norwegian descent. How do you pronounce wolf in Norwegian? Or how is it spelled? Maybe, use a different language. It might sound kind of romantic or look romantic. So you can even experiment with a different language, and once again, it can express your lifestyle, your uniqueness, who you are, and be different all at once. Of course, we can blend words or create our own acronyms to add some uniqueness. And when we are doing our usernames, try to keep it concise or easy to remember. I would like to think chatting with the Lightkeeper, although it's long. A couple of my friends tease me about it, but they also know that I like to talk and can be long-winded. And if you listen to this podcast, you might notice that. And if that's the case, I apologize if I've gotten long-winded on you. Probably am right now. Anyway, but it fits me, and I like to think it's easy to remember. And once again, it's username, so it's about you and what you like, but being as concise and easy to remember, or however it works for you, easy to remember and long-winded, if that's you, but it's easy to remember, or you think it is, that's awesome. Work with it. And of course, always choose something positive. There's enough Eeyores in our lives, on our regular everyday lives, that we don't need to appear or sound like we are Eeyores here in the online world. And once again, make sure your username is easy to read. We're not making it confusing for somebody where they're like, is that an L or is an I, or is it, a unique spelling. I just finished reading the novel Ready Player One. Highly recommend if you are I'm not a sci-fi person, but I love the movie and love the book. Completely different. If you've seen the movie, the book is going to be similar but different, a lot different. And same, vice versa. If you're a fan of the book, do see the movie. I found it entertaining, but it's also Spielberg who did the movie, so it's not like it's done by somebody. But in that, one of the characters is Parsifal, named for the knight that discovered the Holy Grail. But because it's the online world, he ends up spelling Parsifal with a Z. So just when you're doing your username, be conscious of and creative with how you might have to work around to spelling. If you want to be Parsifal, you may have to use a Z. Uh, so, some other considerations. Once again, you can or cannot. It's all up to you. And what works for you, you don't have to, but you may want to. Pick a username that reflects a specific kink or a fetish you have, or something that you're into, want to be into, want to research, want to learn more about it. You can either put that in your username or not. It's all up to you. Some do, some don't. Something else to always keep in mind is in our journey through the lifestyle, we are all going to morph, mature, change, grow. Whatever word you want to use there, we're not going to be the same person that we were a year ago in the lifestyle. So if you are coming to any site, whether it's social media or a specific to the lifestyle website, or discussion group or chat platform, find out what that specific platform's policies are on changing your username, because you may want to change it. Maybe you're, Parsifal Spanx, and in a year, suddenly you've decided that you are now more into wanting to be Parsifal and suspension bondage rather than spanking. So can I change my username? And if so, how does that work? Do I have to create a new account and then try and contact each and every connection that I've made here and say, hey, I'm moving over to this new name here? Or is it easy enough where I can just change my name in one spot and keep the account so everyone who I interact with will just now know me as the new name, and they'll still be my friends? How does that work? So that's a little thing that you always want to investigate. Another area that you'll want to think about is, do you want to use the same username across platforms? For example, if you are going to be on FetLife and you are going to use Twitter, do you want to use the same name on Twitter as on FetLife? Or do you want to have some, anonymity where you might appear as two different people rather than be the same person? So maybe you can explore something on Twitter that is different than what you're exploring on FetLife and not have those two kind of interest or those two, the usernames linked together. Another bit of advice is, if you can, avoid using honorifics with your username, because titles are something that should be earned in the lifestyle and earned out of respect, and people shouldn't feel forced like, oh, that's Sir Sam over there, or Mistress Mary. If you want to do that, that's fine, but just please, please, please do not expect anyone to call you by the honorific that you've chosen. Remember, titles, no matter what, need to be earned in the lifestyle rather than just, expected. And finally, remember, some usernames do things for us individually too. They are a great way to be places where we can be self-expressive. It's one of the reasons why I love doing a podcast, love putting content out on social media and keeping my little blog. It's self-expression for me. So I like to, for me, my username is a form of self-expression. And it's also kind of our usernames are, I don't know, maybe our superhero identities, where we can be superheroes and explore. Rather than we're Clark Kent every day in our vanilla lives, and then when we log on to the kinktastic sites of our choice, we become Superman, and our kryptonite is, I don't know, floggers? I'm not sure how that would work, but it gives us an identity to explore with, an identity that is keeps us, in a way, takes us out of our everyday Clark Kent lives. Our usernames also give us a sense of belonging, because the lifestyle community, it's very important, especially early on, when people often feel that they're alone or they're really unique for having these in terms of the vanilla world, weird desires. So the username allows us to attach ourselves to the community and really discover that we're a part of something bigger and we're not alone. Um, the final thing that we do with our usernames is it gives us ownership. Our profile, whether it's your profile at a lifestyle site or it's your slice of a social media, mega social media, it's your slice of Instagram. But with that username, it's your slice. It's your, as long as you play within the rules of the road, stay within their TOS, terms of service, it's your little slice. So, yeah, it gives us ownership. And finally, of course, it's our first impression. It's what we lead with when we start making connections within that community. So that's a bit more that I thought about the whole usernames, and I think as a community as a whole, we could be a little bit more, let our creative juices flow a little bit more, I guess we could say, for picking usernames. And usernames do change and do evolve. Mine has changed and evolved. I haven't been, the Lightkeeper, chatting with the Lightkeeper. I haven't been that forever and ever. I started with very mundane and very, I think this is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, back when I had dial-up internet, and boy, it was great to have dial-up internet. And there are some of you listening to this podcast I know that are like, what is dial-up internet? But back then, I did the old Sir Edward thing, and probably even threw some numbers behind it because there was probably already a Sir Edward out there. So yeah, I have learned as I've grown in the lifestyle how to express myself better through a username. Some usernames worked, some didn't, and as I grew and changed, so did the usernames. And granted, I've been the Lightkeeper and chatting with the Lightkeeper for a long while now. Long while. But just like everybody, if you stay within the lifestyle and you stay active on the internet, your username is going to morph and change along with you as you grow. So don't forget that, and it's perfectly fine to start generic and kind of get more expressive and more adventurous as you go along. Finally, remember, all of this applies to our little avatars, our little profile pictures that we attach with our usernames. We want to be unique, be original, share something that sets us apart, that makes us unique, because a unique profile picture coupled with a wonderfully unique and crafted all about us username lets us stand out and be memorable. So just keep that in mind when you're looking to attach the perfect picture to go with your perfect username. So that's what I have today. I hope you enjoyed this wonderful discussion of username Nameology, and I look forward to chatting with you again next week. And no matter where you're listening, don't forget to click that follow button so you never miss an episode. And no matter where you are on social media, swing by, say hello. I am chatting with the Lightkeeper at just about every stop along the social media highway. So stop by, say hi. I look forward to chatting with you again soon.